First and 12. A weekly roundup of America's most competitive football conference, the Big 12. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry.
Good evening. Welcome on into First and 12 here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry with you. We've reached the season finale. Final episode of First and 12, your weekly check-in on Big 12 football. Season's at the end of the road here, Alex.
Yeah, now what? Then what do we do? Well, the good news is there's no news to really all people are doing around here, especially in the state of Utah, is just sitting around waiting for that Big 12 championship game. Yeah, the season's a wrap, but the news is never a wrap, and this time of year is always very weird and interesting, and we'll get into all that. I do want to go backward, though, in this first segment to look at just some of the things that happened this season. And, I think that for me, and we're going to get to our First and 12 headlines from this last week, but I think if we were to look at this and look at the headlines from what this season was and what this season means to the Big 12 and all the things that come with it is we were shocked again. It was another year that we were blown away by some of the performances. And yet at the same time, the write it down and book it for Texas Tech and the recruiting prowess that they had during the offseason, the money that they spent on the talent, the continued backing that they have. I think the solid coaching that they get from Joey McGuire also cannot go unmentioned because that program has risen to the top, and I think it's in that S tier, as the kids would say, Mitch. Right? They're in the top of this thing, man, and they finished at the top. And I know that they finished with the same conference record as BYU, but obviously the head-to-head between those two teams, until proven otherwise, which we could see something proven otherwise this next week. Think about the storylines of this conference to go now, and Brett Yormark brought it up this week. By the way, we added 8 new teams over the past 2 seasons, and I know he says that from a look at my resume standpoint more than anything. Like you were in that press conference.
He does bring that up a lot.
He brings it up a lot
now that you mention it.
But that's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot that goes with that. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen, and each one of those programs. It's one thing to get added to a conference. It's another one to have your athletic department, your football program, all those things committed to the level that the Big 12 wants, which is, hey, how committed are you? Are you spending resources? They talk about it now at that clip. And so who's been spending the resources? I don't think it's necessarily a total one-for-one, like, hey, if you're the top spender, you're number one. In Texas Tech's case, it is. After that, what's been interesting is to watch teams like Arizona State, who wasn't able to complete the back-to-back. And I know they lost their quarterback. It was a shock to me they lost 4 games. It was a shock to me that Iowa State lost 4 games. A shock to me that Cincinnati went on a quite a bad losing streak at the end, even though we didn't expect them to be where they were at. Cincinnati was a shock at the beginning of the year with how well they did. How about Arizona turning it around? I think Arizona's akin to a Colorado from last year, all right? You look at it and you go, man, 9-3. For Brent Brennan to do that, and I feel bad because I feel like they've done it too quietly. And when I say too quietly, I mean I don't think we talked about it enough. And maybe it was because they came on so strongly at the end and, kind of surprised everybody. But Arizona was a shock to me. Don't sleep on Houston doing a great job. I think their schedule is a little bit softer than Arizona's was to get to 9-3. But think about where that program was last year. Think about where they were. Think about where Utah was last year. As big of a turnaround as anything. They go from 2 wins in conference play to 7 wins. You saw BYU do that in their second year. That can't go ignored. And then at the same time, you've got teams that are at the very bottom that feel at the very bottom. Oklahoma State has not won a conference game in 2 full seasons now. That's as embarrassing as anything that we've ever seen in this conference in the recent 2 decades or 3 decades since 1996 when this thing got formed. And it's shocking that it came out of Stillwater. And it's shocking the coaching carousel that now gets going. All these things add up to, I think, exactly what Brett Yormark's point is, which is you have a lot of teams competing every year, and you actually don't know which ones are going to be the ones to come up and be that competing team. Just like you don't know which ones are going to be the ones who fall off and you expected more out of. I'm looking at you, Baylor. Or even like an 8-4 TCU that was 8-4 at this time last year too. Yeah. And we forgot about that 8-4 TCU team. And then they go on to win their bowl game. They win 9 games. So you see what I'm saying? Like everything it just points to the conference being pretty darn strong as a whole. And yet, they're fighting against the big brands to try to figure out a place for themselves in the college football playoff, which I think will probably only include one team.
And I think that we've also seen, too, that this year you've got the building pieces, building blocks of some real powerhouses emerging in the Big 12. I think Texas Tech's going to be that in the Big 12 moving forward because it's not just this year. I think that's what's kind of intriguing about Texas Tech that's kind of going underreported, I think, is that the way that they're recruiting, we'll see signing day coming up tomorrow, and the recruiting classes that they're building for the future, they're getting some of the best recruiting classes in college football.
Whereas like Colorado, you saw them build what they've been building, and you feel like it is a house of cards.
Yes,
bit, yeah?
Whereas Texas Tech, they've got this infrastructure and resources, and they had a light schedule this year, but they are dominant this season. And I'd also say BYU is emerging as one of those consistent players. Now, lots in flux with BYU when it comes to the status of Kalani Sitake. Where does that go? That's a question there when it resides with Kalani Sitake. But BYU to follow up an 11-win season with another 11-win season, that's huge because typically in this conference you just think, okay, the top half of the league in 1 year, just bank on probably 4 or 5 of those teams being in the bottom the following year. You're building some consistency as there's more familiarity with these programs and going up against each other year after year. This is only the second year of the 16-team conference, and I think we're starting to kind of maybe identify who those top programs are. And I would also say, too, Arizona State's in that mix, even though they go 8-4, 6-3, so many injuries, and to still get to 8-4, I know it ended with a little bit of a dud at the end there in the Territorial Cup, but Arizona State's here to stay as long as Kenny Dillingham is here to stay too. And I know he had a kind of an indirect tweet about coaching changes, and then he deleted it on the heels of the Lane Kiffin stuff. But as long as Kenny Dillingham's there, ASU's here to stay. And I bring that up because that's going to be the key for one day for the Big 12 if this 12-team playoff continues, this format, to give them a chance to have multiple teams because we've clearly seen that the preseason biases can sometimes anchor or keep teams elevated high in the rankings. Mm-hmm. And if you're not preseason ranked high, you get anchored down. And it's key for these teams that have consistently good years. Then it goes, you know what? No matter what the changes, that team's always in the mix. And I know that sounds so dumb, but that's kind of the narrative of how things work in this sport. I think that bodes well for the future of the conference.
Yeah, I think Utah's in that conversation too. I think
Definitely.
Obviously the flux that they'll be in if and when Kyle Whittingham leaves, it's going to be minimized by the fact that you're going to have a guy coming in who's been also part of that journey for a good chunk of the time.
Number one offense this year in the Big 12 after being an absolute joke of an offense. They scored 356 points in conference play. Jason Beck in that offense, they were really good, and it wasn't just Dampier, and it was Bert Ficklin.
Ended up being the number one rushing team in the entire country, besting all of the military academies by the end of it when it was all said and done. And so the things that they did, I don't know if the sustainability of having the number one rushing offense is what they're looking for. I'm certain that Kyle Whittingham, that's something that he would love going forward, but it's not going to be his program going forward either after a time, because I don't know, this could be the final chapter that we saw from Kyle Whittingham. And the interesting thing about him is there's not going to be a lot of flair when he leaves, and you already know how this thing's going to go when he does leave. That's Morgan Scalley who's going to take over for him. So the program would be in good hands there, and I think that's good for the Utes who want to be able to. And you're not just going to automatically just go, I think, and be Kyle Whittingham level of legendary status if you're Morgan Scalley, but it helps to be in that coaching tree, having played there, having been an All-American there, all those things that come with that. And so I think that's it. It's another program that's always going to be talked about as being in that top third of the conference. You can kind of bank it, and I think it's more often than not you're going to see Utah performing versus some of these other teams that can be very, very up and down. Whether or not you can be the team that could just stay up, that's hard to do. That is really hard to do in college football overall. It doesn't matter if you're a big brand. You're going to fall off. You got to figure out how to come back and be really, really good the next year. But the conference this year, 16 teams, it's a lot going on. The most visibility, I think we could probably say, for this conference in its history, and that's after losing Oklahoma and Texas as their big brands, right? And I think that this conference is in a really, really good spot. Brett Yormark thinks they're in a really, really, really good spot, right? Certainly from a business standpoint. That's what he said, right?
The monster partnership. The New Era partnership.
Want to think New Era, want to think
Venmo.
Monster. Want to think Venmo are good partners at Old Trapper, right? So all of that
Big
comes
12
in.
Media Day is sponsored by Microsoft Copilot.
And my friend, Edward Jones, who's going to personally be staking it up for the Big 12 championship this weekend. All right. We'll take our first break. When we come back, we've got our breaking. I say breaking. It's our Big 12 headlines. Our final one of the season from a weekend that wrapped the season. So we'll come right back to that. More to go. It's KSL News Radio. It's 1st and 12. Stay with us.
We feed your daily Cougar obsession. Listen to Cougar Tracks weeknights at 6:30 on KSL News Radio and on the KSL Sports YouTube page.
All right, welcome back. It is 1st and 12 right here on KSL News Radio. Thanks for being with us. Final episode of the season. Year number 3 in the books for us. Mitch, can you believe we've already been doing this for 3 years?
It's been a lot of fun. I enjoy this show every single week, and look, this league keeps us on our heels. You know, we're going into a championship week where it's, 2 new teams again.
Yeah,
so
again.
It's 3 years of covering this league in depth in this market, and 3 years with 2 different teams each and every one of those years in the conference championship game. And that just highlights why the Big 12, it's a different league.
You're going to go down to Arlington. That should be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of folks there from KSL Sports, of course, and it's just going to be a blast to be able to cover it. And it seems like, that obviously is a huge, huge piece of the news from this week. And so let's get things started off here. Let's start off with the X's and O's off the field, though, about how this thing's going to get worked out from a coaching standpoint. Let's jump in here. It's our Big 12, our 1st and 12 headlines. Let's do it.
12 headlines.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The dozen storylines that shape this week of Big 12 football. Headline 1.
Coaching carousel hits the Big 12 as rumors of Kalani Sitake, a head candidate for Penn State, as questions about his candidacy take over the Big 12 championship game press conference.
Yeah, that's your fault, dude.
Yeah, that was my fault. Look, full disclosure, I'd love to say, how are you going to stop David Bailey? How are you going to stop Romello Height? But when you're in a spot where you're thinking, because I'm going in with the mindset where it was like, this might be the last time I'm ever asking Kalani Sitake a question. And you got to ask him the tough questions.
Yeah. Oh, who was it? This just brought up shades of, we were talking with Stanford's athletic director. We interviewed him, I think, the play-by-play voice of Stanford Athletics the week that they played BYU. And we were like, hey, what's the athletic director about? He's like, it's not the athletic director. It's the, Morgan Stanley director of all athletics at Stanford. It was like the office of the, and it's like, it has a name to it because it's
sponsored by someone.
It's not sponsored because it's Stanford. They're too cool. And so it's like a name of a massive donor, Now, Brett Yormark's like, give me a hit. Look, this is going to be the crumble head coaching job at BYU if we're not too careful, is
We'd
what I'm
like
saying.
to formally announce the Jason McGowan crumble BYU football head coach, Kalani Sitake. He's here for the future. It's aspirational.
So I think that the amount of stuff that's been talked about, we don't have enough time to break this one out. We'll get into it a little bit more later in the show, but that obviously was a huge piece of this. And it's a little bit unfortunate because if you're BYU, you can't afford to have any kind of distraction. And this is I would dare say, not a good distraction for BYU this week.
It's massive.
You talk about Texas Tech doesn't have one thing they're thinking about except for this dadgum game this week. And they're going right to it. And BYU could not afford to even get splintered off a little bit. And this gets the team a little bit, I think, off track. I think that's an interesting way to look at it is that how are they going to overcome all of this stuff? Because, it's a physics problem. If your brain doesn't have all the room for all the stuff you're trying to, focus on, you saw them come out a tiny bit flat against UCF last week, right? I mean, so I think some of that had to do with what Kalani described in the postgame as, well, we're all kind of human.
And also to the point of, it's been out there that there's been talks for some time now. How distracted was Kalani last week? You have to wonder if that played a role in the slow start. I mean, even going back and listening to the KSL postgame with Greg goes, Kalani just got word in my inbox that there's going to be a Big 12 press conference on Monday. Kalani goes, oh. Like it's an audible oh. If you go back and listen, it's like,
oh.
I was supposed to be in state college.
He's like, is that about me? Is it about me?
I gotta be on
Can
that?
I do it? Can I do it over the phone? Can I just do it? Can I do it remotely? Yeah. Kyle Whittingham, by the way, headline number 2, speaking of coaching carousel, it's a little bit more elementary in that sense. Now, the question is, and what would be wild is if Kalani left BYU and Kyle stayed. How wild would that be? That guy sticking around another year.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, I think Kyle has hinted enough, I think, about, he talked about how he couldn't have hung it up after last year because of how badly they went. But he said this year has been totally different. They win 10 games. They're the number 1 offense in the conference. They're running the football, doing it. Like, this is a dream for him. I don't know if it's a dream to go out on a possible Vegas Bowl or, Pop-Tarts Bowl invite, but that's the nature of this thing. Bowl games just mean less now in 2025 thanks to the college football playoff. And if you're not in the college football playoff, then people think, oh, well, I'm out. The reality is Kyle Whittingham could hang it up after an 11-win season if they win that bowl game, and that would be about as good as you could do if you're Kyle Whittingham.
Headline 3, BYU versus Texas Tech in the Edward Jones Big 12 Championship game. We will break that down in depth here on the show. And headline 4, Texas Tech to close out the regular season. They dominated West Virginia 49-0, leaving no doubt who the favorite is to win the title. So Texas Tech, they just dominated really the entire season outside of that one game against ASU without Baron Morton.
The national pundits made me they're kind of writing this headline for me. BYU stumbling out of the gate to 14-0. They come back and they go on a 41-7 run to win that final game of the season at home over UCF 41-21. Basically as dominant as you could be, even if you did come out a little bit flat. But Bear Bachmeier and LJ Martin, how about Bear Bachmeier winning, his 8th freshman of the 7th freshman of the week award on the season. And so just a phenomenal year for him. And then LJ Martin, almost another 100-yard game for the conference's leading rusher. So great season for them in the books now officially. And then they have to wait and see what happens this weekend and then wait after that to see what their fate would look like in the postseason as well. Headline number 6 is Utah's offense. They were stale last couple. Yeah. Well, not the last couple of weeks, but really they were stale against Kansas, and obviously they had to come back against Kansas State. And so the last couple of weeks, I think people looked at Utah and went, well, hold on a minute, what's going on with this team? Because they weren't beating everybody by 35 like they had been typically in the games prior to that. So Utah gets the win, though. They end the season at 10-2 and 7-2 overall, and it's as good as you could do. I mean, they lost to the 2 best teams in the conference so far.
And honestly, what's frustrating in the case of Utah, and Yormark kind of touched on this, but if Utah was in the SEC and Big Ten, they have a resume that says they're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
They lost to 2 teams that are in the top 11 of the playoff rankings.
Yep.
They should be in. They dominated everyone else pretty much. Utah, honestly, should be a team that gets a lot more consideration, but it seems like they hit a ceiling when it came to the playoff rankings.
We see how this thing goes. We already know the score with those with the national pundits.
We already know what's happening there, and that's headline 7 going forward with Dave Aranda. He's going to be the head coach in 2026, but they did not close out 2025, the Baylor Bears, with a win. They lost to close out the season. They fell to Houston.
At home, too.
And they're going to miss a bowl game. There was a lot of talk, Alex, that maybe Baylor could win the Big 12 this year, and they go 5-7.
Yeah, we were a couple of those guys that said, hey, Baylor, TCU, those teams should and could be in the mix, and they really should have. Think about the quarterbacks that they had, the potential on offense. Not able to get it done, but yeah, Dave Aranda, no seat hotter in the conference than him right now going into next year. Houston ends their season maybe the most unexpected and an impressive year. Willie Fritz and his guys go 9-3 on the year. I was impressed with the way Houston did this one, and good for him. I'm glad. I hope he sticks around for a long time. I think he can turn everything up at that program down there.
And they've got a 5-star quarterback that's expected to sign tomorrow, so bright days ahead for Houston football. Headline 9, Kansas State sneaks into the bowl season. There's 10 teams from the Big 12 going bowling. K-State's one of them. They finished the year at 6-6.
Well, let's talk about the people who didn't do it. That's headline 10. West Virginia, UCF, Oklahoma State, Colorado, Kansas, all falling short. The big shocks, of course, are teams like Kansas and even Colorado, who fell off so badly this year. People are looking at them now going, what are you guys going to do going forward? I think Kansas is the biggest question mark because Lance Leipold, what are you going to do with that guy? Colorado, it's all going to be about whatever Prime does, and then you go from there.
With how volatile the coaching carousel is, I think Kansas probably holds on Leipold for another year, but Got to get it right next season if you're Leipold. Headline 11, Arizona finishes out the season 9-3. They take down ASU in the Territorial Cup in a game that was played in Tempe. So they go on the road and get it done. ASU finishes the year after being the Big 12 champ a year ago at 8-4.
The college football playoff rankings, headline number 12, they're not really going to matter until next week. The Big 12 championship and all the other conference championships. I mean, we could see at this point next season, or at this point next week, we could be talking about 2 group of 6 teams in. We could be talking about whatever the chaos is that the ACC has brought us. Thank you very much. And then whatever the national pundits are going to do to make sure and lock out some teams that probably deserve being there. But we'll talk about that next week when it happens. So there you go. Your Big 12 headlines when we come back. What do we learn in this second year of the 16-team Big 12? We'll chat about that and much more. Stay with us right here. It is KSL News Radio. It's First and 12.
First and 12. A weekly roundup of America's most competitive football conference, the Big 12. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry.
First and 12 rolls on here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry with you. Appreciate all of you for supporting First and 12. If you miss any part of the program, check out our podcast feed so you can get all the latest in the world of Big 12 football wherever you get your podcast. This is the season finale of the show. So Tuesday nights, you'll still have Cougar Tracks and BYU basketball with Kevin Young here on KSL News Radio. But First and 12 will take a break until next August for more First and 12 here on KSL News Radio. And this year concluded the second season of the 16-team Big 12, Alex, and kind of just begs the question, like, what have you learned about this league and maybe comparison to the other conferences around college football?
I love that they've added as many teams as they have over the past couple of years. I worry that the state of college football, and this is not necessarily, I mean, I don't want to go too philosophical on this, but hear me out. Think about what the rest of the conferences are doing that are the ones that are kind of the darlings, right? You think about, it's the SEC and it's the Big Ten.
Yeah.
In a weird way, too, and frankly, artificially, the ACC's in that mix, and obviously Notre Dame is at the spot where they're at because if they, I don't care what the schedule is or what year it is, if they only lose 2 games, and even the fashion that they do it in or when they do it, they're going to be in the conversation always. And if you're really talking about the Big 12 and their possibility of elbowing their way into the future of the college football playoff as it stands of football, they have to figure out a way to be discussed ahead of the ACC. Not ahead of Notre Dame, but a 3-loss Notre Dame team should never get in, right? I think the schedules just aren't good enough. I think a 2-loss Notre Dame team, you can make the argument fine every year. You should be able to. But their schedule is pretty weak because it includes half of the ACC, which is one of the worst conferences in the Power 4 or the Power 5 or whatever we call it nowadays that we've seen in a long time. And it's evidenced by the fact that you have actual human beings who are part of the head leadership of that conference and of the universities inside that conference that are arguing about changing bylaws today so that Miami should have been considered going forward, going into the the ACC championship game. You know why? Because they got out-qualified by a 7-5 Duke team. But it's the same team that is also being propped up from a national standpoint as the number 12 team in the country. And frankly, you'll see them probably pushed a lot harder and rewarded for not playing in a conference championship game, frankly, like a lot of other teams who are going to be sitting pretty, not having to play in a conference championship game because of the virtue of having a tough schedule where it, quote unquote, means more. I don't know what that looks like for the Big 12 going forward. There has to be a bit of a brand shift. I don't know how you do it, except for, in the immortal words of your friend Al Davis, just win, baby. All the arguments go away. All of the suppositions, all the why we should be there and they shouldn't. The amount of mental gymnastics that teams that have 2 and 3 losses are doing this week to explain away how they didn't show up prepared for games this year. Because that's the reality of it. Texas, you embarrassed yourself in Gainesville. You know why? Because that's an embarrassing program, and you lost to them. You embarrassed yourself in Starkville and got lucky. You embarrassed yourself in Lexington. You got lucky there, too. You beat a team, Texas A&M, at your place that, frankly, I could have told you I knew exactly that's how the script was going to go. I know Mike Elko's mad about it, and I know Texas A&M fans will never live it down because Aggie fans down there are the butt of every joke by every Longhorn fan and every person, frankly, in the state of Texas. That's the way it is. Aggie jokes abound. That's a place I grew up. Like, we grew up telling Aggie jokes, right? And you saw people doing it this week. And the reality is that Texas is the bigger joke. Going out and arguing for a 3-loss team to get in. The SEC is a joke by propping themselves up to try to pretend like 6 teams are worthy of being in a place while you exclude a second team from the Big 12. Arizona State, by the way, remember this point last year? Do you remember what they were ranked last year going into this game?
Like 21, 19,
they were
somewhere
15th.
in there? 15th.
By the end of the last ranking, they like kind of jumped up. So did Iowa State because they got to kind of make it look a little bit decent. And Arizona State won that game, and they got put in as the automatic qualifier into that 4th spot. The reality is they probably, this year, they wouldn't have been in there. They would have been like in that 10, 11 type range, right? And frankly, the only thing that's going to, and if you think that adding 4 teams, making it a 16 team, or heaven forbid, making it a 24 team league, we're going to have the same conversation because instead it's going to be the SEC asking for 8 teams and the Big Ten asking for 8 teams. And it's going to get it's going to be a mess. And I don't see it getting better going forward until these programs look at Texas Tech and go, that's the model. You just have to win. And if that takes out spending the people that are going to beat you at all these other things, then do it. Just win, and then you don't have to have the conversation right there. Because BYU this week is already, I'm telling you, I'm already watching people back into the excuses of how they didn't get into this thing and why they should have been allowed to get in. Look at our strength of record. Look at all these things. If they win this weekend, then they're in, and that's the end of the discussion. Just like I think it should be for the rest of college football. Just win. I don't care about the back and forth about whether or not losing 2 games and then thanking the heavens that you don't go to a conference championship game because you'll get your 3rd loss is not a way to live. And too many teams in the SEC and the Big Ten do it.
And it's a great take because the thing is, it's frustrating, though, because honestly, we need to see a college football where I think it's okay to lose a game or 2, and we should reward teams that challenge themselves out of the conference. I hate now the Steve Sarkisians of the world that are saying, well, guess we're going to have to scale back on our non-conference scheduling. No, you're out because you lost to a terrible Florida team.
Yeah, that's a pouty like take. It's so dumb for them to say
I hate that BYU had a weak non-conference schedule. Now, East Carolina ended up being okay, but still, I want to see BYU play, someone really good in the power conferences. And I want to see the SEC schedule Big 12 teams. Like Auburn, Baylor, that was awesome. And we got a real barometer check of where Baylor was at. You couldn't beat a subpar SEC team. Yeah, you're not good. And look, Baylor was 5-7. They were not good. It was a good barometer and a real test to show the strength of that team. And so I feel like the Big 12, they've got to push hard going forward for what the Big 10 has been pushing for, and that's the 24-team playoff laced with a ton of automatic bids. That's what they've got to push for because then we get to a point in the sport where it sounds extreme and it really completely alters the whole concept of college football if we go to this, but 4 automatic bids for each power league, that to me is great because then it just settles on the field. Okay, you know what? BYU might be a complete fraud. The way they play, it's not impressive. It's not beautiful to watch.
Right,
but
you'll find out. You'll find out if they are.
You're going to go to Ole Miss, and we're going to learn.
Right,
and we're going to find out.
But every year, who were the frauds last year? SMU, Indiana to an extent, Boise State certainly.
Yeah.
Like you start to find it out, and then you go, and you expose the system. And immediately, what happened in the offseason? Well, let's make some changes here because Boise State should not have been a 3 seed.
ASU shouldn't have been a 4 seed.
ASU should not have been a 4 seed.
Even though they looked every bit the part as good as Texas.
Right. And whether or not Texas is good or not, I still wonder because I just think that there are brands getting by on brands right now.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Because if it comes down to it, they're putting together a TV reality show. And the way that they do it, what you do is you put the they pick people on Dancing with the Stars, who are just people who, I heard that name. Where did I hear it recently? Well, they got famous on that stupid show.
I was hammering out the votes for Andy Richter.
It was you keeping him afloat.
I was a fandy.
Come on.
I was a fandy.
So you see what I'm saying? And you think
a guy looking like me dancing? Right. Yeah, man.
They give him a shot. But then, by the way, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, you would never see those people on anywhere near a dancing floor, anywhere near any of that kind of thing, except for the fact that their brand is on the rise. So there you go.
Yeah, Whit Levitt, you already had dance classes. This isn't impressive. I want Andy.
And I heard you lied. And so we're going to vote you out this week because of how you treated some of the girls.
Steve Irwin's son, he got it done, though.
Look at that.
Mate. He got that title.
Hey, the Irwin's holding it down for decades. We know way too much about this. All right. But you see what I'm saying?
Dancing the Big 12 playoff cha-cha. Brett Yormark and Joey McGuire.
The reason it makes sense is because you and I get it. They're putting together a dadgum reality show.
You exude excitement in your feet.
And guess what?
10.
Guess what? Guess what? All those brands will always be. Was that your Bruno, by the way? You didn't stand up when
Bruno
you did
Ravioli, what is his name?
I think it's not Bruno Ravioli.
You exude confidence.
What I loved about the dance was. All right.
Kirry and Abo. No, we don't want to hear you. You're too long.
Len, may you rest, brother. All right. Bottom line is, it's a reality show. You see that those big brands are pushed by the big TV brands to be able to put together something that is going to get the most TV ratings. That's the end of it.
That would be the more effective top 25 rankings in the future. Just make it Dancing with the Stars format. Have them do a little sign. 14, BYU.
It's so hard to watch this from inside, so to speak, because we watch this thing. We know what the conference is doing to try to work their tails off. In a 2014 playoff, if there were 4 automatic bids, think about what that would look like for the Big 12, just based off of the standings, right? You're looking at Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, Arizona.
That's not bad.
That would be quite.
There's some wins in there.
Guess what? And guess what? There'd be a shocking win, too. A team would underestimate the Wildcats. They wouldn't know what they're getting with Noah Fafita. And you'd see a 18th seeded, fill in the blank first round team taking on however the setup is going to be, if they're going to have buys for the first 12 seeds. I don't know. Taking on a 13 seeded SEC team that is a 13 seeded SEC team, by the way, has got probably 4 losses in conference, right? So then you're talking about rolling out a team that is just trying to get by off of brand, laurels. If Tennessee thinks that they would just go in and beat Arizona, I think they'd be sorely mistaken. Am I wrong? That'd be the kind of matchup we're talking about.
You're right.
So,
that's why we got to get to that point, and then it settles itself on the field, because as long as the committee has all the power, Big 12 is going to get hosed no matter how many teams are in the playoff. We got to take a break, though. On the other side, we'll get to our sound roundup. We'll hear from Commissioner Yormark. Joey McGuire has a fascinating idea for college football in the future. We'll hit on that next here on First and 12 on KSL News Radio.
Today's just the start of the Big 12 and Power 5 talk to come. Listen to JJ and Alex Monday on your drive home. Afternoons from 3 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is First and 12. Thanks for being a part of the program. Thanks for hanging out with us this season. If you miss any portion of the show, just like every week, you'll be able to get the podcasts wherever fine podcasts are found. You can download those. Listen to our ramblings about the comparisons of the Big 12 as it pertains to Dancing with the Stars. That's what we've gotten into. That's what we've turned into, Mitch. That's what we've turned into. Let's jump in here, though. It's the part of the show where we get to our sound roundup, listen to some of the audio from across the conference. Let's jump in right here.
Big 12 Sound Roundup.
Check 1, 2.
The best bites, cheap shots, and excuses from Saturday's postgame news conferences.
Let's just jump right in. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark, he laid out the resumes for Texas Tech and BYU, the 2 teams in the Big 12 football championship game. This was Commissioner Yormark.
Both programs got to Arlington by earning it on the field with an impressive 11-1 records. Just like when these 2 teams met in Lubbock last month, all eyes again will be on the Big 12 when they take the field this Saturday in Arlington, live on ABC at 11 o'clock CT. Both programs are not only worthy of competing in the Big 12 title, but they both deserve to be in the CFP based on their resumes and their bodies of work. Texas Tech's terrific season has them firmly in the CFP, no doubt. They are a shoo-in, and I said that last Friday. BYU's body of work at 11-1 is being undervalued by the CFP committee at number 11 in rankings. Let's not look at logos. Let's look at resumes. Any blind resume comparison has BYU in the top 10. No question about it. In comparison with Notre Dame, as an example, BYU has a better overall record, better strength of record, and better strength of schedule. I am confident that the CFP will get it right for BYU. With that, again, thrilled that you all are with us. Excited for this weekend.
Sounds like Brett Yormark already assigned Texas Tech the championship, though, too, right? Like,
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of funny? Where like
they're in.
That was a little bit lost, right? Where he goes, I hope they consider BYU. Well, you're not saying that unless they lose the conference championship. They win it, then you're talking about that with Texas Tech. And I think that Texas Tech has gotten enough of a branding boost this year that would get that that kind of situation going. So it's interesting to see this thing go back and forth and how this is going to shape up. I'm not sure. However, I do want you to listen to Joey McGuire, because I don't know if you heard this yesterday, but this soundbite I thought was awesome. It's a little bit long, but it's him going off about, hey, by the way, we have the schedule and the calendar totally screwed up. But when you don't have a commissioner of the most watched sport besides the NFL in the country, when you don't have a commissioner, when you don't have a committee that's actually got teeth about rules, calendars, engagements, then you have a problem. And this is what Joey McGuire said about how the calendar just screws everything up.
I don't want the portal in the spring. I want to know what my team is in January so I can create my team and what we did this last year and the chemistry and everything. And so you're just putting a Band-Aid over the problem until we address the calendar. So in my opinion, we all should have played August 23rd. So instead of week 0, we play, that's week 1. That would mean with the buys and everything, the conference championship would have been played over Thanksgiving. So you get that out of the way. So now we know who's in the playoffs. So if you were saying the first round was going to be played Saturday and then the quarterfinals 7 days after that, semifinals 7 days after that, you actually could play the national championship on January 1st. And then the portal would open on January 2nd. So the season would actually be over. So until you do that, we're still going to have this. If we're going to be like the NFL, to where everybody's saying that, in the NFL, there's a tampering for coaches also, and there's a penalty. And so, hey, if you're going to leave your team that's in the playoffs, maybe your team that you're going to is not eligible for the playoffs the next year. Maybe that changes some of the things. Or, hey, you're going to leave your team for the playoffs. Nobody from your past team or your team that you're coaching at can go to the team that you're going to. That they're not eligible. They can get in the transfer portal, but they've got to go somewhere else. They can't follow you. Until there's some penalties in that, we're going to get the same thing over and over. I do think the biggest thing that we have to address, and TV's got to get behind this because they've already got this mapped out with the quarterfinals and all this stuff, we've got to push the calendar up, and we've got to get football out of the second semester. We're not supposed to be playing college football on January 19th. That should be over at the very worst of where it has been in the past. I still think that's too late, and the calendar can change that.
Too reasonable.
Fantastic.
It's a person who thought it out too much. There's no room for that in college football.
That man loves college football. Joey McGuire,
he does.
He should be the commissioner of college football. That guy again, loves the sport.
And it's, let's not pretend like he's saying that like, hey, you got to keep it out of the second semester. They're working on their finals. Like, that's not what he's talking about.
No.
He's talking about, this is weird, you guys. Like, you've got to get through it, be done with it, and move on.
That Notre Dame Ohio State title, no one cared last year.
No
one cared. I honestly forgot the game was happening.
You really do forget. You really do forget because at some point it doesn't make any sense. And by the way, we get to this point of the year where these conference championships happen, and then what do? We have 2.5, 3 weeks of sitting around going, oh, can't wait for that stupid bowl game to start up on the 17th. This dumb bowl game doesn't matter on the 21st, all these things. And guess what? The college football playoff, I get it. It's the big thing, and it's going to get even bigger. And make some of these early round games, brand them as the old bowls, fine. I like it. But take away old school bowls. We don't need that garbage. You don't need to go, do we have enough funding for the Nassau Bahamas Bowl? No, you don't. And you know what? Bag it. You know what? You don't need to send a Sun Belt representative. You don't need to. And so all of those things that are just the worthless accoutrement to the bowl season, and just the excuse of, well, people are at home and they'll watch anything, is not actually true. It's not actually true, because we barely wanted to watch the national championship last year. Because guess what? NFL is king by the end of it. And once January, the middle of January starts coming in, I go, I've moved on, brother. I love college football more than anything, including the NFL. But the NFL, the best season, the best part of the year, wild card weekend,
yes,
divisional rounds, and those are starting to get encroached a little bit with the college football stuff. Don't think you're too big, college football. You're not bigger than the Shield, and you never will be. Joe McGuire makes tons of sense. Make the national championship on those January 1s that people traditionally love college football on. Let's go, man. I love it. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. Second hour of the program, around the corner. We've got tons to get into. When we come back, we'll get into our final power rankings. Hey, these are set in stone now. These are just etched in the granite at the end of the season. We'll tell you what they are, and we'll get there. Much more to go second hour right here in First and 12 on KSL News Radio.